dragon who defended Mondstadt for a millennium finally faces his perturbation. What does freedom really mean when demanded of you by a god?
Hi everyone, welcome to Voice of Zephyr. This is my very first video on this channel. My name's Zephyr, and here I'll be sharing the story of the Archon quest in Mondstadt from Genshin Impact. Even though the Mondstadt arc was released 4 years ago, I want to tell it again so you can remember the main story in a shorter version. And if you're someone who skipped the dialogues or never really followed the plot, I hope this video helps you understand how the story unfolds. So, let's dive into the story. The story begins with a pair of siblings who are continuing their journey, when suddenly, they're confronted by an unknown god. They fight back with all their strength. At this moment, we must decide which sibling will become the main character of the story. For this video, I'm choosing the male sibling, Aether, and his sister is named Lumine. The overall plot stays the same no matter who you choose, so it doesn't really change the story. Unfortunately, after a fierce battle, Lumine is captured and sealed away by the god. Soon after, Aether is also trapped inside a mysterious cube and loses all his powers. From here on, I'll simply call Aether the Traveler. After that incident, Traveler wakes up in a world called Teyvat, not knowing how many years have passed since he was separated from his sibling. He wanders alone for a long time, until about 2 months ago, when he meets Paimon, a small, fairy-like creature whom Traveler rescued while fishing. Since then, she's become his companion and guide on his journey through Teyvat. On their first journey, they head toward a city called Mondstadt, known as the City of Freedom. Along the way, they come across a statue of the Seven, which represents the god who controls the power of wind, or Anemo. When Traveler touches the statue, he suddenly gains the power of Anemo. He and Paimon assume that the reason he's able to receive this power is because Traveler isn't originally from this world.
Not long after, a dragon flies past them in the sky. Traveler and Paimon decide to follow it into the forest. Inside, they see a mysterious person who seems to be calming the dragon. But as soon as the dragon notices Traveler, it looks uneasy. The mysterious person suddenly vanished. The dragon roars in anger and flies off, leaving behind a dark red crystal shaped like a teardrop. Paimon feels the crystal could be dangerous and tells Traveler to keep it. Once they leave the forest, Traveler and Paimon are stopped by a cheerful girl who introduces herself as Amber, an outrider of the Knights of Favonius. Amber explains that lately, a dragon has been spotted around Mondstadt and advises Traveler to head into the city as soon as possible. Of course, Amber says she'll guide them both to Mondstadt. But first, she needs to clear a hilichurl camp near the city, so Traveler decides to help her. Paimon feels strange about the hilichurls building a camp so close to the city, since they usually stay out in the wild. Amber explains that the dragon Storm Terror has been appearing more often lately, keeping the Knights of Favonius busy and leaving the areas around the city without much attention, which is why the hilichurls have managed to come so close. After that, Amber takes Traveler into Mondstadt. As a thank you for helping her, Amber gives Traveler a wind glider, wings that can be used for flying. She also teaches Traveler how to use it. Not long after, the dragon that Traveler and Paimon saw earlier starts attacking Mondstadt. It creates several whirlwinds all over the city. At one point, Traveler gets pulled into one of these whirlwinds, but luckily, he uses his wind glider to keep himself in the air. With the help of a mysterious voice, Traveler manages to drive Storm Terror away from Mondstadt. Traveler's fight with Storm Terror is witnessed by Kaya, the cavalry captain of the Knights of Favonius. Amber quickly introduces Traveler to Kaya and explains why he has come to Mondstadt. Fortunately, Kaya doesn't ask too many questions and simply tells them that their Grand Master wants to meet Traveler at the Knights of Favonius headquarters. Kaya, Amber, Traveler, and Paimon finally arrive at the Knights of Favonius headquarters. Jean introduces herself as the Grand Master and also introduces Lisa as their librarian. Lisa explains that the flow of elemental energy and the ley lines in Mondstadt are now in chaos, like a ball of yarn tangled by a cat. She also says that the reason Storm Terror can create such strong storms is because he's drawing power from the temples of the four winds, so Jean asks everyone to go to 3 of these temples to help fix the problem. With the help of Amber, Kaya, and Lisa, Traveler manages to solve the disturbances and bring peace back to Mondstadt.
Traveler returns to Mondstadt to report back to Jean. But as he's about to meet her, he sees Jean speaking with a masked woman who wants to kill the dragon as a way to solve the current problem. Jean doesn't agree with this idea because the true identity of Storm Terror is actually Dvalin, one of the 4 winds. Jean explains to Traveler that the masked woman is actually a diplomat from Snezhnaya, a follower of the Cryo Archon, and part of a group known as the Fatui. After that, they go to the headquarters to discuss the teardrop crystal Traveler picked up when Dvalin left the forest. Lisa explains the crystal contains an impurity, causing pain whenever she approaches it. She concludes the crystal reacts to visions because its impurity clashes with elemental power. Lisa suggests Traveler keep the crystal to prevent it from harming anyone else. Seeing Traveler's special power, Jean grants him the title, Honorary Knight, as a thank you for his efforts in helping Mondstadt.
Outside the headquarters, Paimon mentions there's something Traveler hasn't told Jean and Lisa yet, about the mysterious person they met in the forest. For some reason, whether because he's long-lived or simply by chance, that mysterious person appears again, running through the city. Traveler and Paimon follow his trail using elemental sight until they finally catch up to him. Surprisingly, the man recognizes Traveler as the one who drove Dvalin away. He introduces himself as Venti, a bard. Traveler takes out the crystal he found, and they're shocked to see that it has suddenly been purified. Venti explains that the crystal is one of Dvalin's teardrops, created out of his sorrow. Venti also has another of Dvalin's teardrop crystals, and asks Traveler if he can purify it as well. Sure enough, Traveler easily manages to cleanse the crystal. After seeing this, Venti says he already has a plan in mind and goes to the symbol of Mondstadt's heroes, a giant tree in the Windrise area. Under the giant tree in Windrise, Venti explains that dark blood has been poisoning Dvalin's heart and tormenting him for a long time. This weakness has been exploited by the Abyss Mage to twist and manipulate him. The Abyss Mages belong to the Abyss Order, a non-human organization that despises humankind. They can even control the hilichurls in the wild and use them as weapons. Venti also reveals that he was poisoned because there was an interruption while he was trying to communicate with Dvalin. That interruption turned out to be Traveler's unexpected arrival. As compensation, Venti asks Traveler to go with him to the cathedral to retrieve the holy lyre Der Himmel, a lyre that can calm Dvalin. Inside the cathedral, Venti asks a sister to lend him the lyre, saying he needs it to help Storm Terror. But to his surprise, the sister refuses. Instead, he reveals that he's actually Barbatos, the Animo Archon, trying to prove he's persuaded. Unfortunately, the sister ignores his claim completely. Running out of options, Venti asks Traveler to speak with her instead, thinking Traveler's good reputation with the Knights of Favonius might help. But even that doesn't work. The sister insists on seeing official documents from the Knights of Favonius. Since asking nicely didn't work, Venti decides to have Traveler take the lyre by force. In other words, steal it. When night falls, Traveler sneaks into the storage room to retrieve the lyre. But suddenly, a member of the Fatui appears and steals it first. Adding to their troubles, Traveler and Paimon get spotted and have to run away. Outside the cathedral, Venti quickly understands what's happened and creates a wind current that carries them to a tavern. There, they meet a red-haired man named Diluc. He agrees to help hide them from the knights. When 2 knights come searching, Diluc sends them off in the wrong direction. After the knights leave, Diluc asks why they went so far as to steal the holy lyre from the cathedral. Venti explains everything to him in the form of a performance. Diluc is shocked because what Venti shares should have been secret information. Still, he agrees to help and says he needs some time to gather a few people. Later that night, after the tavern closes, Diluc secretly invites Jean to join them. He explains that Jean is here as herself, not as the acting Grand Master. Jean is surprised to learn that the one who stole the Holy Lyre was actually Traveler. Even so, she still believes Dvalin never truly betrayed Mondstadt, since he was once one of the Four Winds. Unfortunately, as acting Grand Master, Jean can't say this openly to the public. The pressure from the Fatui diplomats has made it hard for the Knights of Favonius to resolve things peacefully, so Jean plans to handle it quietly instead. Jean adds that the Fatui, followers of the Cryo Archon, seem to be after the power of the Animo Archon. She suspects that if the Knights try to stop the Fatui from killing Dvalin, as they intend, then the Holy Lyre would become the only way to reach the Animo Archon's power, especially since the lyre can be used to summon Dvalin.
From the information Diluc gathered, the Fatui didn't keep the Holy Lyre inside the city, since it would be too risky to hide stolen goods somewhere so easy to find. So, Diluc and Traveler head out to a Fatui hideout far from Mondstadt to take back the Holy Lyre. After defeating the Fatui there, they manage to recover it. However, the lyre still can't be used to summon Dvalin, because there's no more Animo power left in the lyre. At that moment, Traveler drips one of the purified teardrop crystals onto it, and the lyre's color instantly changes. Still, it's not enough to fully restore its power. So, Traveler needs to gather more of Dvalin's purified teardrop crystals to make it work. With help from Diluc and Jean, Traveler goes to various places to gather more of Dvalin's teardrop crystals. They all meet up at Dawn Winery to purify 3 of the crystals, and afterwards they place them onto the Holy Lyre. Afterward, they talk about where to play the lyre to summon Dvalin, and finally agree that Star Snatch Cliff is the perfect spot. Once they arrive, Venti tries to play the lyre, and sure enough, Dvalin appears. But out of nowhere, Venti is suddenly attacked, and the lyre ends up damaged. They discover that riding on Dvalin's back is an Abyss Mage, who's been twisting his mind, convincing him not to trust anyone. Dvalin now believes Barbatos, who is actually Venti, only called him there to kill him. And then, controlled by the Abyss Mage, Dvalin flies away. Diluc asks if the Holy Lyre can still be repaired, but Venti says it's already broken. However, Diluc reveals he still has a plan. He explains that a few days earlier, he defeated an Abyss Mage inside one of the Four Winds temples, and tells them to wait for news from him about tracking down the Abyss Order. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Abyss Mage who was controlling Dvalin earlier. He's shown meeting someone that he calls Princess. That person is actually Lumine, Traveler's own twin sister. Later on, they all gather again at Dawn Winery. There, Diluc shares that he's found new clues about the Abyss Order. Before he can explain further, Paimon asks Venti why he even needs help from humans when he's a god. Venti explains that the 7 actually means the 7 Archons. The world of Tevat is divided into 7 regions, each ruled by one of these Archons. However, Venti admits he doesn't enjoy ruling Mondstadt. He feels Mondstadt doesn't want to be ruled either, since it's known as the City of Freedom, and the Animo Archon himself is the god of freedom. Returning to the matter of the Abyss Order, Diluc tells them that an Abyss Mage has been spotted in the area around the winery. After defeating the Abyss Mage, Venti notices a strange energy released as it's defeated. This same energy was used to cut off Venti's connection with Dvalin. However, through that energy, Venti is able to sense the flow and rhythm of the magic used to create the barrier at the entrance to Dvalin's lair, a ruin known as Storm Terror's lair. When they arrive at the storm barrier, they're attacked by several hilichurls. Though hilichurls usually avoid places with strong elemental energy, Diluc suspects the Abyss Order is manipulating them. Then, Venti plays his wooden lyre to break the seal around the barrier.
After that, they head toward the top of the tower in the center of the ruins. Once they reach the tower's peak, Venti senses they can't go any farther because the place is protected by an ancient seal. According to Diluc, the seal is actually a kind of light-powered mechanism. So, Traveler goes to 3 different spots to activate the mechanisms after first starting the one near the tower. Once all of them are active, the path into Dvalin's lair finally opens. Before going inside, Venti wants to share the power of Animo with Traveler once again, just like during the fight with Dvalin in Mondstadt, when a mysterious voice helped Traveler, which turned out to be Venti's voice all along. Inside the domain, they spot 2 glowing spots on Dvalin's back. These are clumps of poisonous blood frozen into his wounds. Venti believes the Abyss Order has placed a curse on these wounds to poison Dvalin's mind. After a tough chase through the air, Traveler manages to destroy one of the blood clumps on Dvalin's back. Then, 4 of them descend and face Dvalin again atop a swirling wind vortex. There's still one last clump of poisonous blood left. It has to be destroyed to free Dvalin from the Abyss Order's influence and relieve his pain. After a fierce battle, they finally manage to break it. But the domain of Dvalin's lair collapses from the damage, sending them all plunging into the raging winds below. Fortunately, Dvalin flies in and saves them. He then asks Venti why he didn't call for help when he was falling. Venti explains that he didn't want Dvalin to end up being ruled by the Abyss Order, and he also didn't want to rule over Dvalin himself. He says that even the freedom desired by a god can still become a form of captivity. After that, Venti shares the power of the Animo Archon with Dvalin. Though Dvalin believes he's no longer one of the 4 Winds protectors, he still chooses to protect everyone. That's why Venti entrusts his power to him. After returning to the city, Jean explains the misunderstanding to the people of Mondstadt about Storm Terror and reassures them that they're now safe. Because everyone thought Storm Terror was attacking Mondstadt for no reason. The next day, Traveler and Paimon also return to the city. They meet Amber, who says that Jean came back earlier and told everyone about their heroic story. Amber also explains that while Master Jean was away, monsters near the city tried to attack Mondstadt. She adds that this wasn't entirely unexpected, since even when Traveler first met Amber, she had already noticed the presence of hilichurls close to the city. To celebrate Traveler's success, Amber treats them to a meal at Good Hunter, as she had promised Traveler and Paimon before. When they arrive at Good Hunter, Traveler meets Kaya. Kaya tells Traveler that the Abyss Order has one leader who planned to use Dvalin as a weapon. This leader is actually Lumine, Traveler's twin sister. Then, Kaya leaves when he spots Amber coming over. While they're eating, Amber asks Traveler what they plan to do next. Paimon replies that they'll leave Mondstadt and travel across the 7 nations until they find clues about Traveler's sibling. After the meal, Amber tells Traveler that Jean is waiting in the cathedral to talk about the Holy Lyre. When Traveler arrives at the cathedral, they meet Venti, Jean, and Barbara. Barbara is one of the deaconesses at the cathedral, and she's there to take back the Holy Lyre. When Traveler returns it, Barbara is shocked to see that the lyre is damaged. Venti quickly repairs it with some kind of magic. After it's fixed, Barbara takes the lyre away, but Venti mentions that he only used magic to patch it up and that it won't last long. Then he runs off from the cathedral without saying anything. As Venti is leaving, 2 Fatui agents suddenly appear and try to capture him. Luckily, Traveler manages to protect him. Just as they're about to fight back, a blast of cryopower freezes Venti in place, and Traveler is also held back by the 2 Fatui. The one who appears is Signora, the 8th of the Fatui Harbingers. She takes an object called a gnosis from Venti's body. After claiming the Gnosis, Signora orders her subordinates to leave before the Knights of Favonius arrive, leaving Traveler unconscious outside the cathedral. When Traveler wakes up, Barbara standing in front of him. Barbara explains that she found both of them outside the cathedral and used her elemental powers to heal them. She also says that Venti woke up first and recognizes her healing didn't seem to have much effect on him. After that, Venti left the cathedral and headed to Mondstadt's Heroes Monument. When Traveler meets Venti at the giant tree, Venti explains many things. First, he says that visions are only granted to a small number of people. A vision is an item that lets someone use elemental power. Each vision wielder has a chance to become a god and ascend to Celestia. These people are known as Allogens, or in the Japanese dub called Genshin, which is why the game is called Genshin Impact. Second, Archons don't need a vision to control elemental power. Instead, each Archon has a magical focus that resonates directly with Celestia. This is called a Gnosis. So the vision at Venti's waist is actually fake, just to avoid suspicion. Third, the one who stole Venti's Gnosis was Signora VIII of the Fatui Harbingers. Each Fatui Harbinger has been granted power and authority beyond normal humans by the Tsaritsa from Snezhnaya. She's one of the 7 Archons, and the only Archon the Fatui serve. Although the relationships among the 7 Archons aren't exactly harmonious, Venti never imagined that the Tsaritsa would plan to steal another god's Gnosis. He used to know her quite well 500 years ago, but the Tsaritsa cut ties with the other gods after the disaster that happened back then. After that, Venti suggests Traveler go to Liyue to meet the Geo-Archon. Unlike Venti, the Geo-Archon personally governs his people, but he only appears once a year to give guidance to Liyue during a ceremony called the Rite of Dissension. And as it happens, that ceremony is about to begin. If Traveler misses it, they'll have to wait until the next year. So that's the whole story of the Archon quest in the Mondstadt. Next, the journey will continue in Liyue, where Traveler keeps searching for their sibling, and will meet another member of the 7. Stay tuned for what happens next. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. And see you in next video. Bye.